Hello, everybody. Happy, what is it, Thursday. I hope you're having a peaceful day and a peaceful week. Again, thank you so much for being here. I see some comments already, and I missed you guys. Yesterday was pre-recorded. Today is finally live. I love seeing your comments, so please, we're going to talk about national and global news, connecting the dots. We're going to finish with some deep dives, preview for tomorrow, and please comment. Please ask questions. Please answer questions too. And this all is a conversation more than sort of like a monologue. Hi, Sean. Hello. Good afternoon, everyone from chilly Northern Ontario. Okay, so it's cold already. I feel you. Hi, Esther. Hello. Oh, you're here from Quebec. Awesome. Awesome. Perfect. See, autumn is finally here. And, I actually don't mind it. I like seasons. I like when they change. I certainly very much love when winter ends and spring begins. But yeah, I mean, it's okay not to sweat all day, right? Okay, so we have some breaking news that I want to announce right away. Letitia James is indicted after Trump pressure campaign. This has been reported just about a couple of minutes ago by New York Times. New York Attorney General, who had brought a civil case against Trump, is accused of committing mortgage fraud. And by the way, I put this already in the readout, and I said that they're planning to use this as a precursor to indict her, and boom, then this happens. Her indictment came on the heels of an indictment of former FBI Director James Comey. Obviously, this is political retribution against everybody and anybody who either filed the case, worked on the case, or was in any way possible connect to any cases that involved Trump, now President Trump. Expected. Will the system hold? We hope so, but we will see. As I reported earlier this week, Comey's trial is set for January 5th. He pleaded not guilty, so let's see what will result out of it. Now, today's coverage here will include, of course, Israel-Hamas ceasefire, hostage release, and political fallout, Russia's Cold War-style moves in Cuba and Venezuela, hence our headline today, and perhaps, it's really a lot of things go unreported in the legacy media, so-called mainstream media. And here I said, new Caribbean crisis looms. Yeah, actually, we're going to talk about it. Now, we're going to also talk about Ukraine's counteroffensive and the gains, and Russia's growing vulnerabilities. Also, National Guard deployment, habeas corpus controversy, and DOJ backlash, and AI market risks, rare earth restrictions, and U.S.-China tensions. All of this ahead of the meeting between President Xi Jinping of China and President Trump. By the end of this month, Trump will be traveling to Malaysia, Japan, and South Korea, where he is set to meet with President Xi Jinping. So, let's get into some major headlines. Of course, everybody's talking about the Israel-Hamas deal, calling it a historic deal. Let's get back to earth. Okay, we all want a historic deal. Listen, I would be gifting Trump Nobel Peace Prize today if he would have solved the situation in Ukraine, Taiwan, Israel, anything. If he really would have done it, not just announced it, not just created a concept of it, or some type of delusion, because that's more likely what this is. So, this is the first phase of his 20-step plan. If you recall, May of last year, President Biden at that point, he had a deal that had 6 stages. And the first stage was agreed upon, which included hostage release and the prisoner swap. And it did happen partially. Then it was again blocked by Israel. Then it was again blocked by Hamas. Then Trump came to power, and all of this fell apart because we started talking about Trump Gaza. Yeah? And so today, the big news is, of course, historic deal, peace in the Middle East. If you tune in anything Trump related, he's tooting himself and his accomplishments. But what they agreed upon, verbally agreed upon, right? In Egypt, there was a negotiation or some type of mediation between the U.S., represented by real estate Witkoff, now envoy to Middle East and Russia, Ukraine, and all of it, and Jared Kushner. No title. Son-in-law. They also say, well, he came in and that's when Hamas agreed. He is the big achiever. Now, this is being all tooted by Fox News and the news channels alike. Then there was also the sheikh from Qatar who gifted Trump this Boeing, old Boeing, as a gift, which then we're paying for to become the new Air Force One. And they were negotiating with Hamas. And they then announced yesterday that, we agreed on the first stage. First stage is hostages to be released by Hamas. Hostages, those that are alive, and remains of those who have passed or have been killed. Plus prisoners, right? We don't call them hostages. Legally, they're prisoners by Israel, Palestinian prisoners, about 10,000 of them. The number has been upped after October 7th, first anniversary, about 1.5 years in, up to 10,000 Palestinians. This was decided by the Israeli government. They are legitimate per their variation and their opinion, prisoners. And so they would be released, plus the hostages, Israeli hostages would be released. But under the condition, per Hamas, that Israel would be fully withdrawing from Gaza and West Bank. Meanwhile, Israel has been bombing the area all day yesterday, all days before, and I did report that yesterday. Now, for this just first stage to come, second stage would include Hamas disarmament, and then international community hopes and believes that they will intervene and produce this type of stable, peaceful, peaceful environment in Palestine. Trump thinks there will be Trump Gaza. So that's the stage 2 where we have to get to. But the first stage to be relevant, right, and to be announced as something that has been agreed upon has to be voted on by the Israeli government, by their committee. They should have voted today at 5 p.m. local time. It has been postponed till 6:30. It's still being postponed. And so here's a readout. Israel and Hamas have agreed to the first phase of peace plan that could pave the way to ending the 2-year war. The initial terms announced by Trump on social media include major hostage prisoner exchange and partial Israeli troop withdrawal from Gaza. Now, Trump is now shifting the goalposts. He says, well, actually, I meant partial withdrawal of Israeli troops. Hamas yesterday shook the hand or whatever they agreed upon, however they agreed upon, that was later announced. They agreed to full withdrawal. Now, Trump says, partial withdrawal. Trump described the agreement as the first phase of his 20-point peace plan, though the subsequent, more contentious stages remain undisclosed. He says it's 20 steps. He produced some type of a readout. I reported on that last week, but we don't really know when and what happens. Any exact plan, not concept of a plan, includes who does what when, and if not, what are the consequences? He doesn't have a plan. He has 20 steps that they wrote on one pager that they then presented in a Truth Social post and then sent out as a press release. Next steps. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has convened his government today to approve the ceasefire and hostage release deal. He did convene. They did discuss it. Hamas claimed the agreement also includes a permanent ceasefire, full Israeli withdrawal, and the entry of humanitarian aid, though the final list of Palestinian prisoners to be freed is still under negotiation. Both parties were expected to formally sign the agreement today, right? So this was planned for Israeli leadership to vote on it, to approve it, agree with Hamas on full withdrawal and complete ceasefire and humanitarian aid flowing into Gaza. Hamas would agree on that. They would, sign the deal. Trump gets the Nobel Peace Prize in his mind. None of this has happened as of now, and I'm talking to you. It's 5:46 p.m. Eastern Time. European and Arab foreign ministers met today in Paris. Foreign ministers, but they were actually, the whole meeting was hosted by President Macron, president of France. All of this happened in Paris. This is the meeting that Secretary of State Rubio decided not to attend. Though, while humanitarian organizations called today for an immediate surge of aid into Gaza, Trump has not yet announced the timeline for later stages of the plan, which include Hamas disarmament and exclusion from governance in Gaza. This is also a big step. Will that be step number 2, 3, 303? Who knows? Because Israel has to vote on it. They have to approve it. Just to make it clear, it's not that Trump announces that something has ended and we all break into dance and celebratory, some type of, fast. You have to have an agreement, and the agreement has to have details. The devil is always in the details. Who does what and when, and if not, what are the consequences? Who is guaranteeing this to happen? Who is protecting? Because remember, there was the deal last year about northern part of Israel. It was the deal between Lebanon and Israel. And then who was guaranteeing that, successful completion of the deal was France, UK, and it was US at that point, right? That, look, there will be a ceasefire at the northern border of Israel. Lebanon is not going to go in. Israel is not going to bomb Lebanon. What is going to happen, right? And so there are also troops guaranteeing that in case anything happens, at that point, France said, we will be on the side of Israel, which at that point was very questionable. You are a guarantor, you're guaranteeing the execution of this deal, but you're already claiming you're on one side of the deal. So in case of any misunderstanding or conflict, you already picked your side. That was a biggie last year, but now we're here. And so Israeli cabinet now is divided as far-right ministers threaten coalition over prisoners exchange. Now, Israel's government is expected to vote on the ceasefire deal within hours. And I'll be checking my email. Maybe it happens during our live stream here. Netanyahu first convened the security cabinet, followed by a full government session. While a clear majority appears to support the deal, several far-right ministers are vowing to oppose it. Now, yes, they go by majority. They don't go by veto. But will Netanyahu go this far as to go against his own defense minister? That's a big question. Finance Minister Smotrich and National Security Minister Ben Gvir are leading the resistance, citing the planned release of Palestinian prisoners as, I quote, "I will vote against the deal no matter what," said National Missions Minister Strzok. Culture and Sport Minister Zohar strongly backed the agreement, arguing that Israel achieves the goals it set after October 7th. Now, Smotrich, however, warned that releasing prisoners, the next generation would be releasing the next generation of terror leadership and would have severe consequences and lead to rivers of Jewish blood. And if cabinet approves the plan, then the ceasefire would begin within 24 hours. And the prisoner exchange, right, hostage and prisoner exchange, would happen within the next 72 hours. Mind you, today's Friday. If we have 24 hours for ceasefire, today's Thursday. We have 24 hours for ceasefire, then it's about Friday evening. Then we have 72 hours for prisoners exchange. So that would be what? Saturday, somewhere Monday. So, Palestinian leader Marwan Barghouti will not be released. Israel already said we will not be releasing this specific prisoner. And Israel will retain control of more than half of Gaza after redeployment. Now, so at this point, Hamas did agree to one thing. Trump changes goalposts. He says partial withdrawal. Now, Israel is voting half-ass, voting on, okay, releasing hostages, prisoners, but not all prisoners, but also we're not going to withdraw fully. We're going to still keep, this Gaza, this part of Gaza after redeployment. And nobody's talking about aid. Last week, per UN, even peanut butter was claimed by Israel and determined that it is a luxury good, although this was actually the easiest to bring into Gaza to keep babies and kids actually alive. Now, Trump was asked about the hostages. Today, he had a cabinet meeting, which, opened up with praising Trump per usual. I, save you that bit, but that's what he had to say about the hostage release.
The remaining hostages, and they should be released on Monday or Tuesday. Getting them is a complicated process. I'd rather not tell you what they have to do to get them. There are places you don't want to be, but we are getting the hostages back on Tuesday, Monday or Tuesday, and that'll be a day of joy. I'm going to try and make a trip over. We're going to try and get over there.
So yes, this was announced by Press Secretary of the White House, Caroline Leavitt. Yesterday, she issued a statement saying that Trump will be meeting troops at Walter Reed Medical Center tomorrow and undergoing his annual medical treatment. Today, Trump called it semi-annual treatment because his last treatment actually, or the checkup, was in April. We have a whole readout from April 13th about how tremendously well and healthy he is. So guesstimating tomorrow will be some such release there, but is he seeking clearance to fly to the Middle East? Because yes, he's flying frequently and daily almost to the golf courses back and forth, but not that distance, because I saw some comments saying, well, he's flying every day, but not that distance. So it all raised questions as to why is he going to Walter Reed tomorrow, why he has to announce it. Is that the procedure that would not be, they would not be able to hide from the press, so they had to announce it. So let's wait and see what will come out of that. But before that, he called the hostages, actually the families of Israeli hostages. And this was recorded and this was released. Now, as the Nobel Peace Prize Committee is thinking whom to award this prize, although then today, Nobel Peace Prize Committee said that they actually decided on the winner on Monday, which could not timely include President Trump. So let's see what will happen out of it. I'm here. Listen, I'm ready for everything. But this is the video that the White House CNN and CNN published it from the call between the families of Israeli hostages and Trump.
What do you guys have to say to President Trump?
Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody.
You did it!
You did it! Thank you! Thank you!
This is amazing. Mr. President, we believe in you. We know you've done so much for us over the past, since you became a president, and even before that. And we trust you fulfill the mission until every hostage, every 48 of the hostages are home. Thank you so much. Blessed be the peacemakers.
God bless you, Mr. President. God bless America.
Thank you very much. You just take care of yourselves. The hostages will come back. They're all coming back on Monday.
Here he said Monday, today he said Monday, Tuesday, but altogether we have no decision primarily from the Israeli side. That's why I want to call the thing a thing. Let's not pick sides, but let's be factual. Because when you have the facts, you can first sleep better and make better decisions. That's what I'm here for. Now, what we need to also draw attention to, that Ben Gvir, the National Security Advisor, Minister? Ben Gvir. Yes, National Security Minister. He said he vowed to oppose any deal that releases murderous terrorists and said his party would leave the coalition if Hamas rule is not dismantled. Otzma Yehudit currently holds 6 seats in 120-member Knesset. Now, Trump also eyes, obviously, Nobel Peace Prize, and he tooted that, well, he actually needs to get it. Yesterday, he said he was asked about it, and he said, look, if they don't give it to me after I solved 7 wars and actually about to solve the 8th one, nobody has ever followed up with what kind of wars those are. But regardless, then they're just finding a way not to give it to me because there's just a steal. Adding to the fire is actually, obviously Trump himself. He's treating his own. See, he says the hostages' families say that I have to receive this Nobel Peace Prize. And then today Netanyahu posts this AI-generated image with, blown out of proportion Nobel Peace Prize medal that Trump's supposed to be getting. Meanwhile, he knows well that he doesn't have the votes to move to even the first stage of this deal, which then would include and would lead to Israel withdrawing from Gaza. And I think that's where the problem is. Now, moving on, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas praised Trump and the mediators, Witkoff and the Sheikh from Qatar and Jared Kushner, saying the state of Palestine is ready to work to achieve stability. But I want to remind you, U.S. was the only one who vetoed the UN decision on recognizing the state of Palestine. So, okay. Now, Russian Foreign Minister Horseface Lavrov called Trump's Gaza plan the best one we have. My question is for whom? Is mini Moscow coming to Trump Gaza City? Looks like it. Well, Trump, quote, he says, we settled 7 wars. We're close to setting 8. Nobody in history has settled that many. He added, quote, Obama got Nobel Peace Prize for doing nothing, for destroying our country, end quote. Which reminds me that today in history, on this day, President Obama received his Nobel Peace Prize in 2009. Now, Putin met with Azerbaijani leader today. He traveled to Azerbaijan. He's desperate to get any kind of support. It gives you all the information needed about him and about his narratives. But perhaps you recall December 2024 when Azerbaijani jet, was just with civilians, was traveling from, was traveling through Grozny and was shut down by 2 missiles over Grozny. And it pretty much had a hole in the plane. And the plane, then they diverted it over the waters to, why don't I show you the map, right? Check it out. So you see here Kazakhstan, you see here Russia, right? You see Turkey, you see Iraq, right? Pay attention to where Russia is, on the lower end of Russia. So it then was directed to fly over waters. And that's, once it reached the land of Kazakhstan, it crashed there. 38 people died, not all, because of the tremendous heroic acts, actually, of the crew of the plane, they avoided the worst outcome, but certainly this was a horrific accident. Now, this was a ZAL passenger jet. First of all, they directed them over waters, hoping, and they openly said it, hoping that it will crash in the waters and there will be no investigation. But because it did not, there was an investigation. And at that point, Aliyev, the leader of Azerbaijan, he said that these were Russian missiles. And perhaps this was accidental, but we need to state the fact that these were the Russians that shot the plane. Russia always denied it. And so today, when Putin made his pilgrimage to Azerbaijan, he actually sort of apologized. But he didn't apologize for shooting the plane. He said, well, those were 2 Russian missiles because Ukrainian drones were flying over Grozny, over like 1,300 kilometers from, like, where were they launched from, honey bunny? But those were the Ukrainian drones. We were trying to shoot them. That's why it kind of happened. And so we did not hit the plane with missiles. The missiles just exploded near the plane instead of the shrapnel. That's what hurt the plane. Thank you for explaining to us how missiles work. Some of you commented the brilliant comment on Blue Sky on my post and reporting, saying that, look, if you unalive somebody and say, no, it didn't die. The person didn't die because I unalived them. They died because they lack oxygen. Yeah, obviously. You didn't bomb the plane. Yeah, you shoot the missiles. They exploded right next to the plane and ultimately hit the plane. Thank you for explaining how missiles work. This type of missiles. Now, Putin again claimed they did not hit the aircraft directly, but exploded a few meters away. Meanwhile, U.S. lawmaker pushes for closer ties with Russia. Representative Anna Paulina Luna announced an upcoming meeting with Kirill Dmitriev, born in Ukraine, fully fascist, fully part of Russian regime, who is participating in those negotiations between Russia and America, for instance. In Alaska, Turkey, elsewhere, he's there. He's special envoy for Putin. So special so that he's actually handling the business of Kremlin. And so Paulina Luna says, quote, our two countries do not need to be enemies. Allies in trade benefit everyone. We owe it to humanity to maintain dialogue. War is the default of failed policy. Either they don't understand or they fool you and us. I don't know what's happening. I think that's some type of trade going on. We're not living directly in the twilight zone, but Russia is controlling everything. I mean, I don't know who's agent, who is, we come up with names, Krasnov, this and that, but we have to judge by decisions. Don't judge the tweets, judge the deeds. And the deeds show that Russia is calling the shots. I mean, I don't know how else to explain it to you. But meanwhile, remember the widow of Navalny, Yulia Navalny, who's living in New York, who's actually was camping at Camp David with her daughter, allocated by the Biden administration at that point, escaping Russia, now living very well in New York City, having her nonprofit, advocating for regular Russians to be seen as great Russians. And she achieves results. The visa ban for Russians to enter EU has not been even part of the discussion. There was some type of discussion, but once she started talking about it, this was not part of the 19th package of sanctions by EU that they, by the way, haven't approved yet. But okay. Now, she's speaking again. And she's talking about, we don't need sanctions, economic sanctions on Russia because they don't hurt the elites. They hurt regular people. Regular people are great. I have so many examples to show you how they're not so great, but here's Yulia Navalny with her Kremlin narrative.
The main thing which we and you must do to put the maximum pressure on Putin. With other things, they no, I don't support any economic sanctions. I don't think they work against all the Russia because I think that Putin is using these sanctions for propaganda reasons, coming to people and explaining them that all the world is against them and it just unites Russian people.
I think, Maurice, hello, you're talking about Paulina Luna. No, economic sanctions are hurting Russia. And if you're so thinking that economic sanctions are not hurting Russia, why don't you live in Russia? Why do you write Americans and Western elites to get their money? Why are you so close with Clintons here? Why did you stay in Camp David? Why? If you're so pro-Russian, if you're the opposition, why are you so far from Russia that you're not opposing anyone? And this is the problem where Western elites, as we call them, fail to understand how Russian propaganda works. Not all Russian propagandists are coming in dressed in a Russian flag and saluting you with a Hitler salute. No, a lot of them are bloggers. I can show you so many bloggers, guys dressed as women, singing, dancing, being very fashionable at the Paris Fashion Week, getting so many likes and shares. They are anti-propaganda. They give interviews on Russian television, and Russian television says, look, yeah, they live in Paris. They're a bit extraordinary, but they're still Russians. They teach you courses. They sing songs. One guy looks very, as a beautiful woman, so to speak. Nothing wrong about it. But he's advocating for Putin regime. That is very much anti-people like this guy. the guy who advocates for Russian regime. And so when somebody says, I'm part of opposition, meanwhile, they're not opposing anything, but delivering Kremlin narrative, you have to understand that this circus has different faces. Russian propaganda comes in different faces, from honeypot to Putin to Lavrov horseface to all of those influencers and wannabes who have real estate in U.S., who have citizenship in U.S. Putin's daughter lives in Manhattan with the husband. Lavrov has a family in New York. They have real estate in Miami, in California, all over it. They have different faces. They look like you and I. They can share ideas like you and I. And then they will fit in that a little Russian propaganda where you start smelling like, what's that? What's that? Smells like Kremlin narrative. Keep your head on a swivel. Now, nationally, Trump deploys National Guard to Chicago. We saw in Portland, there were a lot of dancing going on. Trump claims there's murder on the dance floor. But, well, members of Texas National Guard, did you see their pictures? Texas wouldn't be very happy, you know. I don't want to fat shame anybody, but Texas National Guard, I mean, if anything, Texas has to speak to them and maybe focus on training and, you know, making everybody so upbeat and, main thing, they're healthy and feeling well. I don't care how our National Guard looks like. I think they have to be efficient, but don't judge me. I'm not part of military advisory board. But it just struck me when I saw the pictures and they're like deployed to Chicago. They have begun operations in Chicago area as part of Trump's plan to deploy federalized troops to Democratic-led cities, a move critics are calling Trump's invasion. Governor J.B. Pritzker and Mayor Brandon Johnson have condemned the action as unnecessary, which I want to add to my comment earlier. Not that I don't judge anybody by the way they look, but I think if somebody agrees to dedicate their life and risk their life and dedicate their life that could be on a cushy sofa somewhere with family, safe in 9-to-5, sort of a lifestyle, but they decide to go and serve the country regardless what they ask to do, I think this is bravery and this deserves respect and admiration, to put it point blank, regardless who and what and how and when. And I think it is a disgrace when today's Secretary of Defense/War is schooling people on the way they look or their gender or their priorities or lifestyle choices or hair, on the face, on the hat and whatnot. I think it's a disgrace. You have to honor people's willingness to compromise their life and risk their lives for our safety. So, but Trump was mocked a little bit. He was asked about habeas corpus, to which look at his reply. Take a look.
Thank you, sir. I also have two questions for you, if I may. Have you given any more thought to possibly suspending habeas corpus to not only deal with these insurrectionists across the nation, but also to continue rapidly deporting illegal aliens?
Yeah, it's suspending who?
Habeas corpus, sir.
Oh, I don't know. I'd rather leave that to Christie. What do you think?
No, sir, I haven't been a part of any discussions on that.
Let me help you, because none of you, those people in the video, know what habeas corpus is. Habeas corpus, Latin for you have is legal writ requiring authorities to bring a detained person before a court to justify their detention. It is a cornerstone of individual rights, ensuring no one is imprisoned without due process. Functions: judicial oversight and protection from unlawful detention, post-conviction relief and challenges to unconstitutional imprisonment, a constitutional safeguard against executive power abuses. Suspension of habeas corpus is constitutionally prohibited, except during rebellion or invasion. It remains a vital check on government power. It's not a Hispanic person, habeas corpus, that you want to kick out of the country, deport. But it's really, honestly, I mean, as I mentioned, we're not talking about professionalism. We're not talking about beautiful minds or intellectuality. We're talking about lack of basic education, just as basic as it gets. Incredible. But DOJ, head of DOJ, Attorney General Pam Bondi, yesterday they had a meeting at the White House which talked about Antifa. It was Antifa meeting where she called for Antifa executions. Essentially, she compared the approach to cartel operations. And remember what we're doing lately with cartel. We blew up four boats from Venezuela with actually fishermen claiming they have some type of connection to cartels, drug cartels. Meanwhile, the wives of those fishermen are now coming up and saying, hey, my husband left fishing and never came back. What happened? So that's what she had to say that she wants to do with non-existing Antifa.
We're not going to stop at just arresting the violent criminals we can see in the streets. Fighting crime is more than just getting the bad guy off the streets. It's breaking down the organization brick by brick. Just like we did with cartels, we're going to take the same approach, President Trump, with Antifa. Destroy the entire organization from top to bottom. We're going to take them apart. Thanks to your bold leadership and the designation of Antifa as a terrorist organization, which is exactly what they are, Americans will no longer tolerate their unhinged violence. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pam.
Meanwhile, Trump had issues staying awake. He was fighting the sleep. Take a look.
Nearly died. And after surviving that, the reporting that I saw in liberal media was...
And the sleep was winning.
Antifa assaulting hundreds of police officers. I've witnessed them firebombing police departments and federal property. I've witnessed them making death threats against federal agents, police officers.
But what he stays awake for is a good grift. And so there's a new commercial on Newsmax and all those channels. Are you excited to see what it is? Check it out.
Hello, everyone. It's President Donald J. Trump, and it's Trump time. Check out this red beauty. It's one of my new watches. Wear it proudly on your wrist, and everyone will know exactly what it's for, who it represents. It's really going to be something special. It's for your favorite president. Get your watch today at gettrumpwatches.com. Please make a great gift. It's Trump time.
Storm alert. Nor'easter threatens U.S. East Coast. A powerful nor'easter could form this weekend, bringing strong winds and heavy rain to the East Coast. The Southwest also faces severe flooding risks, as over a month's worth of rain is expected in just days. I am sure it's going to impact Canada, so keep your head on a swivel. Stay safe, stay sane. If you're traveling or if you're staying home, keep your head on a swivel, but check, most importantly, your local news. All right? So, national quick news, protests. Around 1,000 anti-Trump demonstrators marched peacefully in Chicago as Texas troops deployed. Shutdown stalemate. The Senate again failed to advance competing proposals to end the government shutdown. Investigations. Well, a federal jury is considering charges. Well, I updated you. They already indicted Letitia James. IRS impact. Did you know that roughly half of IRS staff was furloughed yesterday amid the shutdown? As the Supreme Court, justices appeared open to allowing candidates to challenge state election laws. As to AI warning, IMF, International Monetary Fund, and Bank of England officials warned of a potential AI-driven market bubble reminiscent of 2000 dot-com crash. You don't say. Really? You think we didn't know? I hope you did know. Okay, chip raise. A U.S. semiconductor investment is expected to surpass China, South Korea, and Taiwan by 2027. But again, good. It sounds great. Like, let's say Qatar. They said, oh, we're going to invest in U.S. for chip making. Good. And then, if you dive deeper into it, they will build a factory in Texas that will be owned by Qatar. They will employ certain personnel from US to teach Qatari personnel about how to build those chips. Most of the personnel will come from Qatar on H-1B visas with those $100,000 bonuses or whatever fees each. And so once US is done teaching, they will keep the factory and then bring it back to Qatar. It's like the devil is in the details. Okay, let's just not be that dumb. Military and health. The Air Force may cut its successful True North mental health program, and a new maternity wrap dress will replace a uniform first fielded in 1993. Private sector. Amazon launched prescription vending machines. Domino's Pizza revealed a new brand image, and GoodRx is in talks to join Trump's Trump RX initiative. How low can you go? This low. This low. Do you have anything? Oh, okay. Trump also announced that next week will be Columbus Day. Apparently, he's bringing it back. I don't know where it was, but apparently he's bringing it back.
We're back. Columbus Day, we're back, Italians. Okay? We love the Italians.
Okay. I want to show you a video before we dive into global news. This video is from Michael Wolff. If you don't follow him on Instagram, if you're on Instagram, recommending to follow him. That's a gentleman who wrote a book about Epstein, traveled with him for years, and knows them personally and pretty well. And he explained to us today this term of stonewalling and what Trump essentially does. It's worth your watch. It's about 2 minutes, 13 seconds. So please watch.
Trump got asked point blank if he was going to pardon Ghislaine Maxwell. Spoiler, he will pardon her. And he put on his Epstein face, which is Ghislaine, the name. Yeah, I know the name. Yes. Who is she again? It's similar to what he has always done with Epstein. Palm Beach, maybe I shook his hand once. And then Pam Bondi appeared before Congress, and she was asked about the Epstein-Trump pictures, the pictures I have seen, by Senator Sheldon Whitehouse. And she responded to him, "Pictures, why are you asking about pictures? You're the no good, rotten scum here," or some such. This is called stonewalling. To obfuscate, avoid, mask, run out the clock on what has been one of the singular facts of Trump's political career, that he has gotten away with a life of sexual malfeasance. Grabbed them by the pussy, scores of women making accusations against him, E. Jean Carroll, and of course his BFF, Jeffrey Epstein. It is really his ultimate political art to be able to blatantly, boldly, belligerently deny the obvious. But you can't fool all of the people all of the time. Or can you?
Or can you? And that's the question. Now, this picture just dropped. Trump looks like he has devil horns. Anyway, it's a lamp. But it's from today's cabinet meeting. So let's move on to our global news. So Polish PM Tusk is talking about Nord Stream 2, and he's bringing up the recent comments by former Chancellor of Germany, Angela Merkel, where she said that Poland and Baltic states didn't really want to negotiate with Putin. She blamed some sort of COVID fatigue. And, this was her statement, sort of like a precursor for the invasion. Now, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk delivered a blunt message to former German leaders and advocates of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. Shut up. That's the statement. His remark underscores Warsaw's long-standing contention that the project was a strategic error that deepened Europe's vulnerability to Russian energy leverage. From Poland's perspective, those who enabled the pipeline should be reflecting on the consequences, not offering commentary on current policy. As to fresh U.S. sanctions on Iran and their oil networks, the United States announced sanctions on roughly 100 individuals, entities, and vessels linked to Iran's oil and petrochemical trade, including actions targeting a Chinese independent refinery and terminal. The move aims to constrict Tehran's energy revenues and curb sanctions of evasion networks. The breadth of designations highlights Washington's intent to tighten the screws on logistics, shipping, and finance nodes rather than focus narrowly on producers. Now, Ukraine has an update. Specifically, President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, has an update on the battlefield, and it looks rather positive. So, President Zelensky said Dobropirya counteroffensive, launched August 21st, has been timely and successful, claiming Russia has lost 12,000 troops, 7,000 of them killed, others injured, and that the operation disrupted Moscow's plan to seize much of Donbass by November. He linked the fighting to Ukraine's broader strategy, counter-sabotage operations around Kupiansk and Lugansk, and Liman, village by village clearing of Novopavlivka, where Russia massed 4 armies, and precision strikes inside Russia aimed at degrading fuel supplies. Zelensky estimated Russia now faces a gasoline shortfall of up to 20% and has shifted to emergency imports from Belarus and China, while imposing a domestic export ban on gasoline and diesel, signs, he argued, of mounting stress on Russia's war economy. Now, as to Germany, yesterday I reported that their production went down by 18.5%. Merz is about to talk to the industry leaders in Germany, but also Germany's Bundestag today approved more than 7 billion euros in procurement, headlined by new combat aircraft, as Berlin continues its rearmament push. The package is framed as part of longer transition to meet deterrence requirements and NATO obligations. Remember, all the NATO states members have to up their defense spending to 5% GDP per Trump's request or demand, so to speak. Now, with air capabilities seen as central to defending against drone and missile threats. This is for Germany. Okay. So far, so good. France. Their government collapsed. They had the shortest serving prime minister. What now? France rules out snap elections for now. President Macron said he will appoint new prime minister within 48 hours, tamping down speculation about new parliamentary elections amid debt concerns. He was also somehow asked maybe she should just resign and withdraw, sort of like Biden and Trudeau, but he's standing his ground for this matter. The reshuffle is intended to restore stability and focus on fiscal reforms. Markets and opposition parties are watching for signals about policy continuity. Now, yeah, it is important because Macron resigns. Le Pen is here. Parliament collapses. They call for parliamentary elections. Far-right parties right there. Same story in Germany. Same story in Britain. It's everywhere. So hold your ground. Airspace and espionage in Europe. There was a bombshell revelation. So, but before we actually talk about that, the European Parliament urged EU states to shoot down Russian airborne threats, which includes drones and planes that violate their airspace, reflecting heightened anxiety after recent incursions and airport disruptions. In parallel, a bombshell probe, which I just talked about earlier, alleged that Hungary's Russia-aligned Orban government has operated an espionage network where, in Brussels, in the heart of European Union, recruiting at high levels, raising internal EU security questions and fueling debates over counterintelligence within EU institutions. So they're essentially recruiting folks who work for European government, for European Union government or European Union Commission, Parliament, for Russian intelligence community. And Orban has veto power. And Orban receives money. And Orban vetoes anything Ukraine related together with Slovakia. Okay. Nobel Peace Prize. According to reporting cited here, the Nobel Peace Prize finalized its Peace Prize decision on Monday before the Israel-Hamas hostage deal shaped under Trump, effectively ruling him out of the 2025 award. The optics are notable given Trump's public comments about deserving the prize and his criticism of past laureates. Look, we'll see. Anything is possible in this shitty environment. It can be that he's announced tomorrow that he won or whatever, but the announcement will come tomorrow, which actually is within hours. Now, China tightens rare earth export controls, which is significant ahead of the meeting between Xi Jinping and Trump. Beijing added 5 rare earth elements and multiple mineral processing machines to its export control list. The escalation lands 3 weeks before Trump's planned meeting with Xi Jinping on trade. Meanwhile, U.S. lawmakers are pressing allied countries to align with Washington's chip equipment controls on China, an effort to close loopholes and keep advanced tools out of Chinese fabs. Now, back to Germany and their drone policy. Germany's cabinet approved a draft law authorizing police to shoot down rogue drones pending parliamentary approval. The proposal follows a string of incidents, including unidentified drones, grounding flights at Munich airport, intensifying focus on counter-US rules of engagement, airspace safety, and coordination between federal and state authorities. I don't think this is so unidentified. I think we defined it pretty well. I think Germans defined it pretty well. EU is now calling for you to shoot down the drones. I mean, shoot down at least a drone. We're not talking about planes. Turkey needed 17 seconds to shoot a plane with the pilot, but drones. They're flying over your military objects. You close airports because of them. So please. But as I started reporting on India and UK, they have a big trip. So this is what's, what really stuns me a little. Remember when Trump, obviously he has those big meetings with business leaders in the US, business leaders in tech industry specifically. And then he dragged all of them. He flew them to Saudi Arabia, right? With the hair dances and everything, and the portable McDonald's wheeler and all that. Then he brought them all to London. Then they were all in tuxedos attending the fancy dinner with the King of England, Charles. Now, instead of saying, what did they do? That's embarrassing. Instead of that, Prime Minister Starmer seems to be enthused by this idea and actually motivated to copy Trump. He packed a plane full of those business leaders, British business leaders or UK business leaders, and flew them over to Delhi, to India, to meet with Modi. Modi posted so many pictures and videos like he's a blogger, really celebrating everything and anything. Also, Starmer went to the cockpit during the flight. He greeted everybody on the flight. He said, I wish you a very smooth flight. Thank you for being here. This is historic. This is tremendous. Yada, yada, yada. So we're just copy-pasting American nonsense. But okay. The UK will sell about $468 million in missiles to India. India is the eye in BRICS, to be clear. A deal touted for creating 700-plus jobs in Northern Ireland. Prime Minister Starmer traveled with large business, academic, and cultural delegation to build on a July trade agreement and to consult on Ukraine. The visit signals London's push to deepen defense industrial ties with key Indo-Pacific partners. Don't bring up Ukraine if you don't intend to talk about Ukraine. You're selling missiles to the eye in BRICS. Please. Modi is hugging and holding hands with Putin. Don't bring up Ukraine if you don't intend. Listen, like in those songs, don't tell me you love me unless you actually do. Stop bringing up Ukraine. If your point is to sell out to India, please. And partially I do understand because of the tariffs, right? And if we put our allies into position to seek other sources and resources, and they replace us. Shall we be mad about it? Not really. First of all, Prime Minister Starmer is Prime Minister of the UK. He cares about his country, not about Ukraine, not about anybody. Yes, he will be prioritizing his. As we say America first, here he says UK first. And he is acting accordingly. Yes, they will be closer to India. Yes, they will be closer to China. Yes. 3 times yes. We're here to blame for it, or whatever this leadership and whoever voted for it. First and most importantly. Now, Russia's lower house voted to withdraw from suspended plutonium disposal pact with the US, with Moscow's deputy foreign minister declaring the strategic environment has changed. He added that momentum towards Ukraine peace deal from August Alaska meeting with Trump is largely gone, underlining the fragility of recent diplomatic fluid. Then the other guy, Ushakov, said that no, actually in Alaska everything was so tremendous in Anchorage, and these deals are still keep delivering. And I don't know what those deals are because they never announced any deal. But before we do a deep dive into the new missile or Cuba crisis, let's talk quickly about Madagascar. President Andry Rajoelina appealed to both supporters and critics to give him a year to fix electricity shortages and other crises, promising to resign if he fails. Remember, there's a big uptick in Gen Z protesting. Some protest leaders refused to attend his town hall and vowed to continue demonstrations, demanding removal of specific officials. The standoff will hinge on visible service improvements, if they're delivered. Now, in his first major document, Pope Leo called for dismantling unjust economic structures and reaffirmed care for migrants and refugees. He said he was happy to make the document my own, noting that Pope Francis began the work in the final month of his life, signaling the doctrinal continuity alongside new leadership. So this is the first time that he spoke in a very straightforward voice. If you haven't read it, I'll share it. Please take a read. Regardless of what religion you are, we have to recognize Pope Leo as a leader whose voice matters. Now, America's insecurity the right-wing mayor of Lima staged a Charlie Kirk memorial with attendees reportedly bussed in from poor neighborhoods while seeking help from the Trump administration. U.S. Senate Republicans blocked a measure to bar Trump from using military force against boats in the Caribbean. That's how it looked like. Take a look. So, also, Colombia's president Gustavo Petro said one recently bombed boat carried Colombian citizens. Despite rhetoric about Caribbean cartels, most U.S.-bound cocaine transits the Pacific. Now, Hungarian novelist Laszlo Kraskai received the Nobel Peace Prize in Literature. I retweeted his tweet on X where he said, I just got a call from Sweden. They said I won the Nobel Peace Prize. Thank you, guys. It was very humble, and he sounded surprised. So certainly did not do the whole PR campaign to get it. Now, let's dive deep into 2 issues, and then I'll let you go. First, Venezuela and Russia. I want to circle back real quick. Remember weeks ago when U.S. started sending, 6,500 troops to Venezuela, like on the coast of Venezuela. Also, USS is there, and Maduro says, oh my God, they want to take me out of power. And we kind of don't know what happens. And yeah, we're bombing fisher boats, but we don't really bomb anything else. So they're kind of limbo, right? And 65,000 troops is not something invasion related. But I voiced this thought that maybe in Alaska, Putin talked to Trump to say, hey, look at Venezuela. They're so bad. They're exporting so many drugs to you. You should stay firm. You should kick their butt. Also remember when we talked about 2009, when Maduro had to stay in power and rely on Wagner mercenaries sent by Putin, and in return, he shipped gold reserves to be held in St. Petersburg, which I think could be a possibility here that actually, Trump, emboldened by Putin's rhetoric to give it to Venezuela, led to Putin actually to step in and promise Maduro that he will be the one mediating between U.S. and Venezuela to make sure that nothing else happened and nothing else will be bombed. Obviously, in return for keeping whatever was dislocated to St. Petersburg. And why do I think so? Here's a picture. Look at it while I have a readout. On October 8th, 2025, Vladimir Putin's birthday, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro issued a decree finalizing a strategic partnership and cooperation agreement with Russia. It caps a year-long sequence: Maduro's BRICS Plus appearance in Kazan, October 2024, formal signing at the Kremlin, May 7, 2025, the fourth such Russian pact since 2022 after deals with China, North Korea, and Iran, and unanimous approval by Venezuela's National Assembly in September. The pact spans 10 years. Whatever they're holding there, they signed, is 10 years. It deepens ties across energy, mining, finance, defense, technology, space, plus coordination at the UN against what both sides call the collective West, headlined by the US. Does it now make sense that Putin sort of provoked it, now stepped in as a big mediator? And now he's guarantor, actually, for Venezuela that nothing will happen for the next 10 years. He's very optimistic about his lifespan. But anyway, why does it matter? Energy and mining. Joint investments and new trade financing aims to stabilize Venezuela's revenue base and give Russia another commodities partner outside Western channels. A new financial infrastructure signals intent to root trade around dollar-centric systems and sanctions screening. Venezuela's use of Russia's satellite navigation bolsters civil and potentially dual-use applications: logistics, surveying, military positioning. Also, the pact formalizes long-running military links forged under Hugo Chavez and expanded by Maduro: training, equipment, doctrinal exchange. Remember when Putin signed such commitment and agreement and cooperation with North Korea? Suddenly we saw their troops in Ukraine. China, suddenly we saw their special troops in Ukraine. Don't be surprised if you see Venezuelans in Ukraine soon. Caracas and Moscow plan tighter diplomatic choreography in multilateral forums to resist sanctions and reshape narrative battles on sovereignty and intervention. Implications for Moscow: another durable foothold in Western Hemisphere, and the showcase of sanction-resilient statecraft. For Caracas, political installation and capital inflows at a time of economic strain, exchanging alignment for investment and security guarantees. Now, for Western allies and Washington, D.C., more reason to monitor financial flows, technology transfers, and regional basing access arrangements that could complicate sanctions and security planning. And now let's talk about the new Caribbean crisis. Moscow's Federation Council ratified a military cooperation agreement with Cuba, signed earlier this year, that maximally expands military ties and would allow deployment of virtually any offensive systems on Cuban soil, including nuclear systems. In parallel, Russia is signaling potential deployments in Venezuela, whose leadership is closely aligned with Kremlin. Against the backdrop, Russian commentary has escalated over a possible U.S. transfer of Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine, which obviously will not happen, but they use it as a reason to do what they want to do with Cuba and Venezuela. This is classic reflexive control by Kremlin, shaping an adversary's decision by manipulating perceptions of risk. Moscow is portraying prospective U.S. Tomahawk deliveries as dangerous escalation and floating reciprocal measures, which would be actually putting nukes on Cuba, in Cuba. Now, the approach has precedent. Similar campaigns preceded or accompanied Western debates over HIMARS, ATACMS, F-16s, Abrams tanks that later were all shipped to Ukraine, often slowing deliveries. Now, why is it now Even the discussion of tomahawks can influence timelines, training, and basic decisions. But I would say if Putin announces something, it means it has been in planning for months or years in advance. They always had this possibility. Now, Cuba and Venezuela provide geographic theater for deterrent signaling aimed at U.S. politics, obviously. Reports of up to 25,000 Cubans potentially joining Russian forces in Ukraine illustrate how Moscow could trade military-industrial benefits or security guarantees for manpower and basing latitude with high humanitarian and political costs for Havana. Now, of course, it has some historic basis for it, right? The Cuban Missile Crisis looms large. Medium-range missiles once put most of the U.S. within Soviet reach, bringing the world to the brink of nuclear war from October 22 to 28, 1962, sort of very close to the dates in October where we're at. Today's environment differs, though. As air transparency is higher, escalation channels exist, and Russia's conventional inventory is strained by Ukraine, but the symbolism of Western Hemisphere deployment still carries outsized psychological weight. And so, what are the likely scenarios? Real quick here. Port calls, joint drills, radar, sensor placement, dual-use facilities, and stable overt missile basing, yet achieve deterrent headlines. So they can put whatever or say they have put something and they haven't. In Cuba, they can start doing drills together off the coast of Cuba, very close to us. Hello, Florida and folks, right? All of this to divert our attention from Ukraine, from Taiwan, ultimately delivering the wins to Xi Jinping and Putin. The riskiest path triggers U.S. intelligence monitoring, regional diplomacy, and potential intercept sanctions cascades, still less likely given escalation risks and logistical strain. Also, I mean, when so many countries have nuclear abilities and capabilities, it's a very different world than the 60s. Ambiguous references to containerized or mobile systems that are hard to verify, maximizing uncertainty at minimal cost, obviously have limited standoff deployment threats. Now, lastly, there's an interview of Canadian Prime Minister Carney. I know I'm overstaying my welcome, but I want to show you 3 clips. He gave an interview to Fortune magazine, and he was asked, first and foremost, how is it to deal with Trump? Here's his answer.
Look, he is very. I mean, look, he's very sharp. He's very curious about people's opinions on a wide range of issues, and so he will solicit my views, other people's views on topics of the day, particularly international. He's decisive, and he has an ability to change the dynamic very quickly on, whether it's with respect to Ukraine, peace in the Middle East, global trade, and beyond. So you can understand, it's absolutely clear why he's leader of the United States. I mean, you put together all those qualities.
Yeah, but I guess it's diplomacy. Okay. Then he was asked about the antiques and tactics that U.S. is using at the moment, literally monetizing its military power and defense abilities and presenting ourselves as a store, as Trump openly states, using those mafioso tactics, if you will. Take a look.
The U.S. is effectively monetizing its military hegemony and its economic clout. I mean, it's essentially, and I can say this and you probably can't, but it's essentially a sort of mafioso economic policy.
Well, certainly you had me at monetizing hegemony. You lost me as you went on. I think he has a view. He's not alone in his view. I don't share the view, but he has a view that you measure economic success in trade, just like you measure success in business of whether or not you have positive cash flow. And so for him, running a trade surplus is a sign of success. And if you're running a deficit, you, by definition, are either being ripped off or you're not as successful as you need to be. We take a different view, comparative advantage. We don't have time, but since this is The Economist, I can say comparative advantage. I can also say and this is higher level explainer at the back. If you have the reserve currency, the quid pro quo of having the reserve currency is you run a current account deficit because you got to supply.
Have you
dollars to the world.
tried that logic on the president?
I have not. There's not enough hours in the day to go there.
To use
I don't think you need hours to go there. I think you need mental ability to go there, and I feel you. Then they were talking about defense collaboration with the United States, because remember yesterday I had a readout from Prime Minister Carney's office where he said, well, there's no way to escape collaboration with the United States in protecting the Arctic specifically. And I questioned, okay, with the US that is rolling out red carpet to murderer Putin, welcoming him to Alaska, 5 times Russian planes are flying near Alaska afterwards. Trump also openly suggests that China and Russia should be joining US in monetizing Alaska. And you want to collaborate with us, who call you 51st state, in protecting the Arctic? Here's what he had to say.
President Trump's favorite analogy, they have the cards, right? I mean, they have, not only do they have the economy, they also have the security side. I mean, you can't even defend the Arctic, right, by yourself.
Well, we can defend more of we're defending more of the Arctic now, 365 days, land, air, sea, over the horizon radar in the Arctic. We're building out our sovereignty in the Arctic.
But radar means you can see the thing. You can't actually, don't you need missiles to shoot things down?
There are certain areas where we will want to be integrated and continue to fully cooperate with the United States. I would suggest, some others have a different view, but hypersonic missile defense is one of those areas where we're going to want to do, and we have those discussions with them. But the analogy, to go back to your analogy, who has all the cards, there are other games. There's not just one game. That's the point. There are other games. And yes, we're going to spend more time, to extend the analogy, in the game with the United States, but we're going to play other games with other players.
There could be a
counter. You have other games and other players, so why don't you play other games when you know this game will end up unfair to you? There is a rule of the third country usage. Any defense capability. So whatever you buy from US, they have the final say if it includes a third party. If you want to use it against Russia or China, you have to ask US if you can use those missiles that Prime Minister Carney praises. Will US allow you to use it against Russia, or are we going to play the same game that is now killing NATO, where Article 5 becomes more an illusion than an actual tool? Food for thought. Okay. By the way, this was an interview by The Economist, not Fortune magazine, The Economist. And to your comments, I agree, Maurice. All the brown-nosing, whether diplomatic or not, is disgusting. And I agree, which kind of reminds me on this picture. This was published earlier today. Perhaps you saw it if you're in Canada. And you know the reasons for it. And I understand that, look, being in charge of a country is not an easy job. You are balancing so many things, but you're also balancing yourself among so many issues. Trying not to offend anybody, because that would literally change the scope of your country and where it's headed. It can, especially when we are in such fragile environment right now. Different wars going around, US going more towards Russia. Russia is the R in BRICS. There's India, there's Colombia, there's all of them. And we're sort of trying to balance, and Europe is caught in this limbo, still hoping to rely on the United States. You saw today President Stubb of Finland doing this pilgrimage to Washington, D.C., talking about, we're going to deliver the first icebreaker in 2028. And Trump says, yes, before the big event. What big event are you talking about? You're celebrating the big event next year. It's not 2028. If we're talking about 250 years of United States. And what are you going to do with the icebreaker? What, parade it? Maybe he thinks it's a thing that breaks. I don't know. Altogether. Wait and see. My position is always get the facts, analyze them, connect the dots, put it out there, don't speculate, give it time. With anything Trump related, if you give him time, he changes his opinion, he pivots, and once you see him pivoting, you can see his trajectory, where he's headed, what he's doing. It's like, somebody who's running in different directions. You got to give them time to see what the hell they're producing with their route. It kind of looks very much that Russia calls the shots. Which brings me to this. For those who have joined already, thank you. I started Onest Plus. And so tomorrow is our very first off-the-record briefing where I feel that I can speak in a safe environment. We're going to talk about what's next after Project 2025. Peter Thiel has given 4 lectures on anti-crisis measures, on connecting UK with US. Also, other actors in this part of Silicon Valley are working with Peter Thiel. Barry Weiss is working with Peter Thiel, who's now head editor of CBS. We're going to talk about what's next after Project 2025, because Project 2025 is first 180 days. Yes, they're a bit late with their execution, believe it or not, as much as it and as fast as it seems now. They're very pissed that Trump has accomplished 0.1% of everything they wanted to accomplish. And they think because of his ego boost actions, and he's so happy with flattery that he will achieve only 0.4% by the end of his term. So they're thinking about maybe J.D. Vance, maybe what? We're going to dive into that. I don't feel okay speaking freely about that. So we're going to dive into that in safe environment. Also, we're going to talk about how close are we to World War III? Is it or not? What is really, if you are in Netherlands, if you are in Poland, if you are in the Baltic states, if you are in Germany, how does it look like? Who has what? If something would have happening today, how would your country react? What are your options? What can you do? That's what we're going to talk about tomorrow. Plus, quickly, we're going to zoom through actual news and dive into that. This is every Friday. If you want to join our close community for Friday, those off-the-record briefings, deep dives, and last Friday of the month, I'm going to send you a personal Zoom invite. We meet on Zoom. This is like not just off the record, but off the grid meeting. You can see me, I see you, you ask questions. See it as a happy hour, but ask me questions. I'm going to share some plans for the Onest Network, but also, what I saw at the UN. I was in diplomatic meetings and, things that I don't really share for obvious reasons on live stream or our news briefing, but I can share there. So if you want to join, YouTube made me pick 3 levels, but you can pick the lowest one. And it's a join button on YouTube. Click and join. It's monthly. Check it out. You see value in it, stay. You don't see value, you can always cancel. But I hope you will find value there. And I'll see you tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern, for this deep dive, for this conversation there. And it will stay available to you. If you can't join at 5, you can join anytime later. And this will be our safe space there. Also, you will get a link to submit questions prior to that. I'll be sending it to all subscribers tonight. So you can send questions and I can answer them tomorrow right away. And then last Friday of this month, we're going to meet on Zoom and have direct contact and Q&A. So if you're interested, please join. This is already tomorrow. I shared the topics. If you're interested, join. Okay? Now, thank you so much. And by the way, when you join, this just supports my work. We are completely independent. We have no corporate sponsors or sponsors at all. So this is really, readers and watchers supported and powered community. So this support would be very much appreciated. And I always tend to over deliver. All right. So thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you tomorrow. News briefings. Right now, your next one is coming. If you're not subscribed, go to onestnetwork.com, ONEST network.com. Or if you're on Substack, go to Onest there, ONEST, and check out free briefings. Those always stay free. Those live streams here always stay free and open for everybody. I believe in factual news. This is my love language. I believe that you have to have the facts so you can make better decisions. Okay? So, see you tomorrow. Thank you so much. The news briefing is coming today. Your newsletter is coming tomorrow as well. If you want to, join our off-the-record briefing. Otherwise, the open one will be on Monday. All right. Thank you so much. Have a safe night. Have a very peaceful evening, and I'll see you tomorrow.